Alien girl hid behind the human's tool bench. But the story she told him later was the twist. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. The storm rolled over the industrial yard like a low, trembling growl, rattling loose metal sheets and sending a thin mist of cold rain drifting through the gaps of the old repair hangar. Ethan Cole worked alone under the pale beam of a flickering overhead lamp, the smell of warm circuitry and motor oil clinging to the air. His hands moved with worn familiarity across the open panel of a cargo hauler's engine, every click of his wrench echoing through the quiet space. It was past midnight again. It was always past midnight. He preferred the silence, the hum of machines, the steady rhythm that kept his thoughts from drifting anywhere he didn't want them to go. But then, something shifted. A small clatter, faint but sharp, like a tool bumping against metal. Ethan stopped. The wrench froze in his hand. He listened. The rain hissed softly on the roof. The cooling fans whirred behind him. Nothing else. Then another sound, gentle, hurried, almost like someone trying not to breathe too loudly. Ethan straightened slowly, wiping his hands on his jeans. His boots made a soft scrape as he stepped away from the hauler and toward the far corner of the hangar where his tool bench stood. A cluttered steel table crowded with hand drills, wire spools, and half-finished repair parts. Hello. His voice was low, careful, but steady. No answer. He approached, heart thumping in a slow, controlled rhythm. He was used to raccoons, stray dogs, sometimes a runaway kid looking for shelter from the rain. But tonight felt different, like the air had dipped a degree colder. He reached the bench and leaned slightly to the side. That was when he saw her. A girl. No, not human. Skin a soft cerulean blue, shimmering faintly under the lamp. Eyes wide and silver, reflecting fear like a mirror. She was curled tight behind the bench, arms wrapped around herself, clothes damp and torn at the edges, her breathing shallow and uneven. For a split second, Ethan just stared, the world narrowing to the impossible sight in front of him. The rain outside faded. The machines went silent. Even his heartbeat paused. The alien girl flinched when his shadow fell over her, as if expecting harm. Ethan instinctively lifted his hands, palms open, gentle, careful. Hey, he said softly, like talking to a frightened animal. It's okay. You're safe here. The girl didn't speak. She didn't move. Only her silver eyes trembled. Ethan slowly reached for the edge of his workbench, pulled down the thermal cloth he used to cover engine parts on cold nights, and held it out to her without stepping any closer. The girl hesitated, then her fingers, slender, faintly glowing at the tips, reached out and touched the fabric. For the first time, her gaze lifted to meet his full-on. Ethan felt something shift in the air, something fragile and wordless. She was terrified, exhausted, and hiding behind his tool bench for a reason he couldn't yet understand. But he knew one thing immediately, and without doubt. She needed help. And he wasn't going to walk away. The girl's fingers tightened around the thermal cloth as if she expected it to vanish at any second. Ethan stayed where he was, letting the rain's steady tapping on the hangar's roof fill the silence between them. The overhead lamp hummed softly, casting a warm circle of light around their small corner of the world. He watched her shoulders rise and fall in quick, shallow breaths, the kind that came from fear that had lasted too long. You are freezing, he said, keeping his tone soft, the way he spoke to engines that behaved only when coaxed instead of pushed. He pointed gently toward the small space heater by the wall. It is warmer over there. You can sit if you want. She did not move at first. Her silver eyes flicked to the exit door, then back to Ethan, weighing something he could not name. When she finally shifted, it was cautious, slow, every motion deliberate. She stood on unsteady legs, clutching the cloth close, and stepped into the light. Only then did Ethan see how young she looked, maybe barely older than 20 in human years, her cerulean skin faintly glowing at the edges as though she carried a small piece of starlight under her surface. The soft hum of the heater warmed the air. She lowered herself onto a nearby stool, still watching him like he might suddenly change his mind and throw her back into the rain. Ethan kept a respectful distance and knelt beside a toolbox, pretending to look for an adhesive strip so she would not feel cornered. "My name is Ethan," he said casually, as if talking to a neighbor rather than an otherworldly stranger hiding behind his tool bench. "I fix things. Mostly engines. Sometimes coffee makers." A faint shift crossed her face, not quite a smile, but not fear either. She studied him with a softer gaze now, her eyes tracing the lines of grease on his hands, the smudges on his jeans, the tired set of his shoulders. "Lyra," she whispered at last, her voice fragile like a thread stretched thin. It was the first time she had spoken. The name seemed to warm the air more than the heater did. "Lyra," Ethan repeated quietly, testing the sound. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, but the instinctive flinch told him she had been through something she was not ready to explain. He did not push. Instead, he slid the first aid kit a little closer to her. She looked at it, then at him, and her fingers relaxed around the cloth. The storm growled outside, the gutters overflowing with the night's cold rain, but inside the hangar, the air shifted into something gentler. Ethan reached for a mug on his work table, filled it with warm water from the tap he kept hooked to a portable heater coil, and walked it over to her with steady hands. "Drink," he said. "Just warm water. Helps with the cold." Lyra accepted it with hesitant fingers, the steam fogging the air between them. She brought the mug close to her face, letting the heat touch her skin, then took the smallest sip. Her shoulders eased. Her gaze softened. A long moment passed before she lifted her eyes again and whispered, "Why did you help me?" Ethan looked at her for a moment, really looked at her, the trembling hands, the exhaustion buried beneath her glow, the way she held the mug like it was the first safe thing she had touched in days. "Because you were scared," he said simply. Her breath caught, just slightly, as if the answer struck somewhere she had tried to lock away. For the first time, she did not look like she wanted to run. For the first time, she looked like someone who believed she might be safe. Warm water steamed gently from the mug in Lyra's hands as the hangar settled into a quieter kind of darkness, the storm outside softening into a distant hum. Ethan moved back toward his work table, giving her space while pretending to organize a set of wrenches that were already perfectly aligned. It was easier to let her choose when to speak. She watched him with those silver eyes, the glow of the heater warming her cerulean skin until the trembling in her shoulders eased. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely more than a breath. "I did not know humans spoke kindly." The words carried no accusation, only a worn-out honesty. Ethan looked over his shoulder, surprised by the weight behind them. "We have our moments," he said gently. "Some better than others." Lyra held the mug closer, absorbing its warmth as though she had not felt anything soft or safe in a long time. She glanced toward the large sliding door where the rain trickled down the metal slats. "I thought your kind would chase me away." Ethan leaned against the rail of the work table, arms crossed loosely, careful not to crowd her. "If I wanted you gone, you would still be behind that bench," he replied. "You chose to move closer." She considered this, her expression shifting in small, thoughtful motions. Her glow brightened just slightly, as if reflecting a quiet acceptance. Ethan noticed the faint smudge of dirt along her jawline, and the way her clothes clung damply to her elbows. She had been outside far longer than was safe for anyone, human or alien. "You must be exhausted," he said. "If you want to rest, you can use the cot in the back. It is not fancy, but it is warm and dry." Lyra's fingers tightened around the mug. "I do not want to cause trouble for you." "You are not." He meant it. The words landed softly between them, settling like dust in the lamp's glow. Lyra took a slow sip of water, letting silence wrap around them again. Ethan returned to the engine panel, tightening a bolt not because it needed tightening, but because it helped keep his mind steady. After a moment, Lyra's voice drifted across the hangar. "You fix machines," she said. "Do you fix people too?" Ethan paused mid-turn of the wrench. It was not a playful question. It came from a deeper place, a quiet fracture in her voice telling him she was not asking for a repair, but for a reason to trust him. He rested the wrench on the panel and turned toward her. "I try not to," he answered softly. "People are a lot more complicated." Lyra lowered the mug, her fingers tracing its rim. A faint glow pulsed beneath her skin, dimming with the memory of whatever had driven her to hide in a stranger's workshop. Something happened, Ethan said, keeping his voice low and steady. Something that made you run. Lyra's eyes lifted, silver and trembling. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again, a flicker of fear darkening her glow. Ethan did not push. Instead, he nodded slowly and returned to his tools. You can tell me when you are ready, he said, his voice warm against the metallic quiet. No sooner. Lyra exhaled, a soft shudder of relief. Thank you, she whispered. Not for the cot, not for the heater, but for the space to breathe without being cornered. Outside, the storm faded further. Inside, something small but steady began to take shape, as if trust were a fragile machine, and Ethan had just given it its first working part. The heater's steady hum filled the hangar with a low warmth as early morning crept in, muted and gray. The storm had passed, leaving the metal roof cool, and the air carrying the faint scent of wet earth. Ethan worked quietly at the bench, tightening the last screw on the cargo hauler's panel, while casting occasional glances toward the back of the hangar where Lyra sat on the cot, wrapped in the thermal cloth. Her glow was softer now, less frantic, like the dim light of a lantern finally protected from the wind. She watched him with a cautious curiosity, her silver eyes tracing the careful movement of his hands as he worked. You do this every night? She asked, her voice quiet but steadier than before. Ethan set down his screwdriver and wiped his palms against his jeans. Most nights, he said. Engines do not wait for the sun to come up. They break when they want, and people need them fixed whether it is morning or midnight. Lyra tilted her head slightly. You fix things even when you are tired. Someone has to. He tried to smile, but it came out faint, almost an echo of a real one. She noticed. Her gaze softened. You do not rest, she said, more observation than accusation. Ethan busied himself with a tray of tools, but the truth of her words lingered. He had grown used to the long nights, the solitude, the steady comfort of machines that did not judge or ask questions. Lyra stood slowly from the cot, warming her hands near the heater. Even that small motion gave Ethan the sense she was trying to take up as little space as possible. You can stay here until you decide your next move, Ethan said, keeping his tone simple. There is food in the mini fridge. Clean towels by the sink. And if you need anything, you just let me know. Lyra blinked, almost startled by how easily he said it. Why offer so much? Ethan shrugged lightly. It is just what you do when someone needs help. Lyra stepped closer, her glow brightening just a little. Where I come from, help is given for a reason. Something in return. A trade. Ethan leaned his hip against the table. Then think of this as an exception. She looked at him as if trying to understand a language written in invisible ink. Her fingers brushed the edges of the thermal cloth, grounding herself. I am not used to exceptions. You will get used to this one. A small, shaky breath escaped her, almost like relief disguised as exasperation. She moved toward the engine Ethan had been fixing, her eyes scanning the open panel with a strange familiarity. This part, she said softly, pointing to a connector near the fuel line, is not aligned correctly. It will sputter when the temperature drops. Ethan blinked in surprise. She was right. Perfectly right. You know engines? He asked. Lyra hesitated, her eyes lowering. I know machinery. My people use different materials, different systems, but the patterns are similar. She reached out as if to demonstrate, then stopped herself, pulling her hand back. Ethan gently nudged the tool tray toward her. If you want to help, go ahead. I could use another set of eyes. She studied him for a long second, searching for any sign of trickery or hidden intention. Finding none, she stepped forward and adjusted the connector with careful precision, her fingers glowing faintly with each small motion. Ethan watched, impressed not just by her skill but by the way her posture loosened, the way her breath evened out. Fixing things grounded her. Something about that tugged at him. Maybe they were not so different after all. When she finished, she stepped back. It should run more smoothly now, she said. Ethan tested the adjustment, nodding. You were right. It will. Lyra's glow flickered in a soft, almost surprised way, like she was not used to being believed or valued. The engine clicked gently as it cooled, the sound merging with the heater's hum and the quiet morning. For the first time since she arrived, Lyra did not look like someone preparing to run. For the first time, she simply looked like someone who might stay. The morning light filtered through the high windows in soft bands, catching the floating dust in a slow, gentle shimmer. The storm had washed the world outside clean, leaving the hangar wrapped in a quiet stillness that felt almost intentional. Ethan checked the diagnostic panel of the cargo hauler while Lyra stood nearby, her hands loosely clasped, her glow calm and steady. She watched the machine hum to life with a smoothness it had not shown in months. "You really fixed it," Ethan said, glancing at her with a half-smile that carried real gratitude this time. Lyra lowered her eyes, almost shy. "I only adjusted a pattern. You did the work." Ethan leaned back against the metal frame of the hauler. "Still, it helps. Thank you." The way her glow brightened at those words made the air feel warmer. She stepped away from the machine and wandered through the hangar with a slow, thoughtful pace, touching nothing but observing everything. The coils of copper wire, the racks of tools, the sheets of metal stacked in the corner. It was as if she was taking inventory of a world that was new to her, yet familiar enough to soften the rigid lines that fear had carved into her posture. Ethan watched her for a moment before returning to his toolkit. The hangar felt different with her in it, less empty. Lyra paused near his workbench, her fingers hovering over a small motor part. "You fix things so they do not break again," she said quietly. "You choose to mend instead of replace." Ethan looked up. "Replacing is easier, but fixing means it gets another chance." Lyra absorbed that slowly, as if the idea was heavier than it sounded. Her gaze drifted toward the heater where her damp clothes hung neatly on a line Ethan had strung earlier. She wore a loose gray sweatshirt he found in a storage bin and a pair of clean sweatpants rolled at the waist. They were too big for her and made her look almost human, except for the faint shimmer beneath her skin. She turned toward Ethan suddenly. "May I ask something?" He nodded. "Anything." She stepped a little closer, the soft glow around her brightening with the movement. "When I was hiding behind your tool bench, why did you not call anyone?" Ethan paused, his hand still resting on the edge of the hauler's hood. "You were scared. Calling someone would have made it worse. You needed space, not a crowd." Lyra took that in with a slow breath. "In my world, fear is seen as weakness," she said. "Showing it is not allowed." Her expression tightened, not with anger, but with the weight of too many expectations she had never chosen. Ethan crossed his arms gently, thinking. "Fear just means you want to survive," he said. "Nothing weak about that." Lyra's eyes lifted to his, silver and searching. Something unspoken moved between them, quiet but steady. She took another small step toward the workbench, then sat on the stool as if the act itself was a declaration of trust. "May I stay here a little longer?" she asked softly. "I will not interfere with your work." Ethan felt something settle in his chest, unexpected but certain. "You can stay as long as you need," he said. "Interference is the least of my worries." Lyra let out a breath she had been holding, the tension visibly melting from her shoulders. For a moment, the hangar felt like it inhaled with her, the hum of machines blending with the soft rhythm of morning. She looked around, absorbing the quiet, and whispered, almost to herself, "This is the first place I have felt safe in a very long time." Ethan did not answer right away. He just watched her, letting the silence speak for them both, the kind that was not empty at all, but full of something beginning to grow. The sun climbed higher through the hangar windows, turning the lingering droplets on the metal surfaces into tiny beads of light. The air was calm, warm from the steady hum of the heater, and the world outside felt far away. Ethan tightened a bolt on the hauler's side panel while Lyra sat on the stool nearby, quietly tracing the grain of the wood's surface with her fingertips. Her glow shifted gently, neither bright nor dim, but balanced in a way that suggested her guard had lowered more than she realized. For a long moment, neither spoke. It was a comfortable silence, the kind that settled between people who no longer felt the need to fill every empty space with words. Lyra broke the quiet first. "May I ask another question?" she said softly. Ethan glanced up. "Of course." Her silver eyes lifted to meet his. "Why do humans help strangers without knowing what they will receive in return?" Ethan wiped his hands with an old cloth, thinking for a moment. "Not all humans do," he admitted. "But some of us help because it is the right thing to do. That is all." Lyra held that idea gently, like a fragile mechanism she was trying to understand. "In my world," she said slowly, "giving without gain is considered inefficient." Ethan leaned against the hauler, crossing his arms loosely. "Maybe efficiency is not everything." She considered that, her glow changing in a subtle ripple across her skin. But how do you know someone deserves kindness? Ethan looked at her directly, the morning light catching the lines of fatigue still lingering on his face. Everyone deserves a chance, he said, even if they do not believe it themselves. Lyra inhaled softly, almost startled. She lowered her gaze to the wood grain again, her fingers pausing for a moment before continuing their slow pattern. Your kindness confuses me, she admitted. It feels undeserved. Ethan walked closer, stopping at a respectful distance. It is not about deserving, he said. It is about need. Lyra lifted her head at that, and something in her eyes shifted, a soft flicker of vulnerability. Need, she repeated, as if tasting the word. My people consider need to be a flaw, something to hide. Ethan shook his head gently. Need is what makes us seek connection, and connection keeps us alive. She looked at him for a long time, her expression unreadable but full of quiet conflict. Her glow dimmed and brightened in a steady pulse, like an internal struggle made visible. Finally she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I do not know how to accept help without giving something in return. Ethan offered a small, tired smile. Then start with this, he said. Just stay. Just breathe. That is enough. Lyra seemed to take the words into her chest, her posture loosening with a slow exhale. Stay, she repeated. I can do that. Ethan nodded and returned to his work, the quiet settling around them again. Lyra's eyes wandered around the hangar, absorbing the mismatched tools, the half-repaired machines, the faded posters on the wall. This place, she said gently, feels like it has been waiting for someone to talk to. Ethan paused, his hands still on the panel, and let out a soft breath that almost became a laugh. Maybe, he said, or maybe it just needed some company. Lyra watched him, her glow warming. For the first time since she arrived, she did not look like a fugitive or a frightened traveler. She looked like someone who had found a small piece of understanding in a world she did not know. And for a moment, the hangar felt like the safest place in the universe. Filtered sunlight slipped slowly across the hangar floor as the afternoon settled in, turning the concrete a warm shade of gold. The heaters hummed quietly, and the hauler rested fully repaired near the back wall, its newly adjusted systems emitting a soft, satisfied buzz. Ethan wiped his hands on a clean rag and glanced toward Lyra, who stood near the open side door of the hangar, watching the shifting light with an expression he could not quite read. Her glow was steady, but her shoulders held a tension that had not been there earlier. Something in the stillness around her felt too careful, like she was bracing for something she had not yet said. Ethan approached slowly, keeping his steps soft against the floor. You all right? He asked. Lyra nodded, but the motion was small, almost reluctant. Yes, she whispered. I just feel the day changing. Ethan joined her by the door, the warm breeze carrying the faint scent of dust and warmed metal. Days tend to do that, he said gently. They move on whether we are ready or not. Lyra looked down at her hands, the faint shimmer beneath her skin flickering in uneven waves. There is something I need to tell you, she said quietly. Ethan waited. No pressure, no rush, just patience. Lyra took a breath that sounded heavy in her chest. I did not come here by accident, she said. I was looking for a place that felt safe, somewhere unnoticeable, somewhere no one would expect. The way she said the last word carried a tremor. Ethan's voice remained calm. Expect what? Lyra hesitated, her glow dimming just slightly. My people track everything, she said. Every movement, every task, every decision. And when someone does not follow the patterns, they come to correct it. Ethan felt the weight of her words, the fear she tried so hard to hide. Is that why you were running? Lyra nodded slowly. I left without permission. I left because I could not follow their rules anymore. She turned to face him fully, her silver eyes reflecting a mix of fear and relief. When I hid behind your tool bench, I thought you would send me away, or report me. I was prepared for both. Ethan met her gaze. You do not have to be prepared for anything right now, he said quietly. You are here. You are safe. Her glow flickered again, this time brighter at the edges. I want to believe that, she whispered. But even now, I feel they might find me. They always do. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, arms loosely crossed. If someone comes looking for you, then we deal with it. Together. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, as if the concept of someone choosing to stand beside her was something rare, almost foreign. Together, she echoed, the word trembling with a mixture of hope and disbelief. Ethan offered a faint smile. You are not alone anymore. She looked away, blinking rapidly, as though the warmth in the words unsettled her more than the threat she feared. You do not understand what it means if they find me, she said. It will end your quiet life here. You will lose things. Ethan glanced around at the cluttered tools, the patched walls, the fading posters. This place has survived worse, he said. And I do not mind losing something if it means someone else gets to breathe easier. Lyra inhaled shakily, her glow softening. You said help does not need to be earned, she murmured. But no one has ever given me something without expecting a cost. Ethan's voice gentled even more. Then let this be the first time. The wind shifted outside, warm and slow. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the words like light. When she opened them again, her gaze held a fragile steadiness. If they come, she said softly, I will not run. Ethan nodded. Then neither will I. For a long, quiet moment, they stood side by side at the doorway, the sunlight catching her glow and his tired smile as the day deepened around them, carrying with it the quiet promise of a choice neither of them had fully spoken yet, but both understood. In the late afternoon deepened. The light inside the hangar shifted from warm gold to a softer amber, stretching long shadows across the concrete floor. The air carried the faint scent of heated metal cooling, mingling with the quiet breeze drifting through the half-open side door. Lyra stood near the tool bench, her glow dimmed to a gentle pulse, steady but thoughtful. Ethan noticed the way her fingers traced the cloth of the borrowed sweatshirt, slow and deliberate, as if grounding herself. Something had changed after their conversation. Something in the way she moved, in the way she breathed. It was not fear anymore. It was the weight of something she had been holding back for far too long. Ethan wiped his hands clean and walked toward her with that familiar, careful pace. The one that said he would not push her, but he was here if she needed him. You have been quiet, he said softly. Lyra lifted her gaze. Her silver eyes held a depth he had not seen before, a layered mixture of resolve and heartbreak. There is something I need to tell you, she said. Not about my people. About me. Ethan nodded, keeping his posture open and calm. I am listening. Lyra took a slow breath, her glow flickering with each inhale. I did not leave my home because I was afraid of their rules, she said. I left because I broke them. Ethan's brow lifted slightly, not in judgment, just understanding. What kind of rule? She hesitated, her voice dropping to a near whisper. I questioned them. Ethan waited. She pushed on, her words careful and weighted. My people monitor everything. Actions, responses, even thoughts that shift away from the collective patterns. When I began to see the flaws in our systems, they labeled me as unstable, unreliable, a risk. Her hands tightened gently around the fabric of the sweatshirt. When I disagreed with a directive, they tried to reset my path. Ethan's jaw tightened subtly, though he kept his voice even. Reset how? Lyra looked at him with a quiet sadness. They removed choice, she said, piece by piece, until you cannot tell where the system ends and you begin. Ethan felt something shift in his chest, a heavy empathy settling there. That sounds like losing yourself. Lyra nodded slowly. I could not let them take the last pieces of me. So I ran. I hid wherever I could. I slept in abandoned structures. I avoided populated areas. I learned to stay unseen. She looked around the hangar, her glow warming softly. And then I found your door. Ethan exhaled through his nose, the kind of breath that carried emotion without forcing it into words. Lyra, he said gently, none of what you told me changes anything. She blinked, as if the simplicity of his response startled her. But you know now what they think I am. I know what I see, Ethan replied. And what I see is someone trying to hold on to who they are, even when the world demands otherwise. Lyra's glow trembled, brightening and dimming in a slow wave. You do not know what it means if they track me here, she said. If they discover I am with you, they will assume you helped me escape. They will not approve. Ethan leaned his hand on the tool bench beside her, the gesture steady but without crowding her. Approval has never been high on my priority list. Lyra let out a shaky breath that was almost a soft laugh, almost a sob. You always answer like that, she whispered. Like the consequences do not scare you. Ethan's voice softened. Some things are more important than consequences. She looked up at him, her eyes glimmering with an emotion more raw than anything she had shown before. Why? She breathed. Why risk anything for someone like me? Ethan met her gaze without hesitation. Because someone like you deserves the chance to choose their own life. Her breath caught, her glow warming into a soft halo around her. For a long, fragile moment, neither of them spoke. The hangar held its breath with them, wrapped in that quiet stillness that comes right before a truth finally reaches the surface. Lyra whispered, "No one has ever said that to me." Ethan's answer came in a gentle murmur, steady and certain. "Then let it be the first time." Outside, the last light of day faded, leaving the hangar in a calm, amber glow. And in that moment, Lyra's glow matched it, brighter and more alive than he had seen since the night she appeared behind his tool bench. The hangar settled into a gentle quiet as night wrapped itself around the old metal walls, soft and deep, like a blanket pulled over a weary day. The last traces of sunlight faded from the windows, leaving only the warm amber glow of the lamps and the low hum of the heater. Lyra stood near the center of the space, her glow steady, no longer flickering with fear or uncertainty. Ethan watched her from the workbench, sensing that something within her had shifted, something important and fragile. She turned toward him slowly, her silver eyes reflecting the soft light. "There is one more truth," she said. "The real reason I chose this place. Chose you." Ethan set down the wrench he had been holding, the metal clicking softly against the table. "I am listening," he said, steady and calm. Lyra's glow pulsed gently, gathering strength like a quiet heartbeat. "When I ran from my people," she said, "I did not know where to go. Every place I found felt dangerous or watched. But then I sensed something different nearby." Ethan's brow furrowed slightly. "Sensed?" She nodded. "My kind can feel certain emotional patterns. Lonely, but not closed. Your mind was quiet in a way most others are not. You were hurting, but you were still gentle with the world." Her eyes softened. "I came here because you felt safe before I ever saw your face." Ethan exhaled slowly, the truth settling over him with a warmth he had not expected. "I did not know anyone could sense something like that," he said. Lyra gave the faintest smile. "Most cannot, but I could. And when I crawled behind your tool bench, I was prepared for you to be like everyone else I had met that night. Cold, suspicious, ready to reject me." She paused, her glow brightening with memory. "But you did not. You offered me warmth before you offered me questions." Ethan stepped a little closer, not fully bridging the space, but letting his presence meet hers. "It was the right thing to do," he said softly. Lyra shook her head. "It was more than right. It was rare." Her voice trembled, carrying the quiet truth she had held back until now. "And that is why I told you everything. That is why I stayed." The heater hummed, filling the silence that followed. The night outside settled deeper, the world narrowing to the space between them. Ethan searched her eyes gently. "What do you want now, Lyra?" She looked around the hangar, taking in the tools, the machines, the quiet corners that had become familiar. Then she looked back at him, her glow soft and warm. "I want a chance to live without fear," she said. "I want a place where I can choose who I am." Her breath steadied. "And if you will allow it, I would like that place to be here. With you." The words hung in the air, soft but unmistakably real. Ethan felt something loosen inside his chest, a warmth spreading through the parts of him he had kept closed for far too long. He nodded once, slow and certain. "Then stay," he said. "As long as you want." Lyra stepped closer, her glow brightening into a gentle halo that cast faint shimmering reflections onto the metal walls. She lifted her eyes to his, and in that quiet, weightless moment, she whispered, "Thank you, Ethan." No more explanations. No more fear. Just a fragile truth held in the space between two people who had finally stopped running. And, in her silver eyes, calm and clear, he saw something he had not seen in years. Hope, steady and real, reflected back at him like light in still water.